Hello and welcome, my Mario Land owning Leafs. We are here today to react to the video I spent 100 days mapping out Mario's entire planet by Luke and Mike. And, well, I wonder what this will be about, really. I mean, obviously, they are going to map out the entire planet. And yeah, there are several islands here, and I'm looking forward to it. As always, go check that video out. It's a link down in the description, and like that video, subscribe, and do that with mine as well. I would appreciate it so much. Now let's dive right into the video.
Where exactly is Mario Land?
Over there. I bet it's over there.
You know, Mario's private island. You know what I'm talking about, right? And what about the Baseball Kingdom? Remember that one? How did Yoshi's Island go from this to this? And also...
That really is a good question. We do know that Yoshi's Island is from the game Yoshi's Island in the past because baby Mario. Except if... What if Mario, when he dies, becomes a baby again? That would change the entire timeline. And also, there is no real proof that that is what's happening. So, let's move on.
So, where on earth is Diamond City? The world...
Or not? Because my earphones are doing weird things. So...
The world of Nintendo's flagship Italian plumber is a complicated one that, over 40 years of nonsensical adventures, have left basically impossible to manage.
No, it's not been over 40 years. I'm not that old. I am that old. Oh.
So I thought I'd attempt to do...
Okay, this is crazy. Is this already the whole map? Because if so, maybe don't show it off right in the beginning, but that's interesting. I mean, I wonder if they take into consideration Super Mario Odyssey, because... Oh yeah, it's over there. That was like its own planet, right?
Just that. And I did so using the style of the world maps from Super Mario World, because I love that game's world maps. They're super cute. Between paper doppelgangers, surprisingly lore-heavy RPGs, and sports equipment inhabited by ancient godlike spirits, there's actually quite a lot to unpack here, and it's not as difficult to make sense of as you might expect. That being said, this was still of course a massive undertaking that required not just a lot of research, but a lot of theorizing as well. So much of Mario's world is left vague, and that meant that I inevitably had to fill in some blanks and make some educated assumptions based on the details that we do have. So that means that this is a big old opinion alert warning. None of this is canon, it's my interpretation.
I mean, obviously, if we had a canon map, there would be no need for this video, right? So, but I know that people, like every fan base has really weird people in it that complain about weird stuff, so yeah, he's good to point that out.
Another world, Italian plot.
This is from Wanda, right? I think.
Plumbers fight dinosaur dragons. Please feel free to drop your own interpretations down below, I highly encourage it. And with that said, we need to establish a few ground rules for this video, because Lord knows the Mario world doesn't have any itself. I will determine a spin-off's canonicity using a pretty simple rule. Does it conflict with the established canon? For example, Mario sports titles generally don't.
Does it conflict with the established canon? There is an established Mario canon? Well, each game kinda has one, at least those that have a resemblance of a story. The RPGs do have an actual story, granted, but I don't know, like, Super Mario Bros. Counting? Because I know there's the story about the people of the Mushroom Kingdom being turned into the bricks that you then destroy, and people always assume that means you kill, but I think destroying them frees the people, but different story. But is there really a canon in the timeline? I wonder. Everyone always wondered about the Zelda timeline, but I would be more interested in this, actually.
No, nobody dies and everything that happens has some rhyme or reason to it, so I'd say they count. Mario Party sees characters repeatedly killing each other in nonsensical minigames. These don't count. Mario Kart technically does count, but except for very...
Do they kill each other? Because if you die, you just use an extra life.
specific tracks, it's impossible to nail down exact locations because they're just so vague, so I won't be mapping out specific courses here. I think we could just assume that Mario Kart is a worldwide Grand Prix event that takes place. I'm using the games as my main source of information here. I might use evidence from extra sources as supporting evidence, but never as the primary source of something's canonicity.
Yeah, I get that. I think the movie and manga stuff, they are like their own universe that's based on that, but not like a multiverse thing, but, you know, establishing their own rules and everything.
Miyamoto has clarified some things about the Mario franchise over the years, and while some of it's helpful, some of it makes absolutely no sense. So the rule I'm imposing here is that Miyamoto's world is gospel, unless something from the games directly contradicts it. Finally, I won't be going into timelines and order of events unless I think it's relevant to understanding a portion of the map. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think the timeline is super relevant when mapping out the geography here. This map is of Mario's planet as we know it in its current day.
Yeah, I don't think time actually is that important either. Because, yeah, landmasses can change over time, but the earliest point we have is Mario as a baby from Yoshi's Island, and then Mario as an adult, let's say a time span of 40 to 50 years or something. Even if it was like 100 years, and even if it's like 1,000 years, landmasses don't change that much in that time frame. So even sometimes changing basically not at all, not that we could like map it out. So yeah, he's right about that.
Okay, now without further ado, we shall begin our journey at... One kingdom that needs absolutely no introduction is the Mushroom Kingdom. Super Mario Odyssey shows us that the kingdom is shaped like an actual mushroom, though given its...
I never noticed that! Is that why it's called Mushroom Kingdom? And that's why the toads are wearing the mushroom hats? Because apparently those are just hats. They're not mushroom people. Whatever happened to their noses? Huh.
It's the primary setting of the entire series and is one that the majority of the games take place in. It's safe to assume the Mushroom Kingdom is actually much larger than depicted in this game and contains a lot of biomes. Mushroom plains, snowfields, deserts, deep jungles, poison swamps, and mountainous mining regions are all commonplace here, and highly likely much more spread out than I've condensed them into this map, i.e. there's probably multiple of each and not just big globs like you can see here. Side note, there's also this nearby island called the Baseball Kingdom I mentioned earlier. At least I assume it's nearby. Peach has this island built specifically for her and her friends to hold a baseball tournament in, so I...
Peach is an evil rich girl, kinda. I mean, she doesn't really do evil on the surface, but she built an artificial island just for their friends to enjoy baseball? That had to mess up the environment heavily, so, yeah. Elon Peach.
I doubt she'd do it too far offshore, and Bowser is able to reach the island pretty easily, so it must be within reach of him. I'm also pretty confident that Bowser resides in the Mushroom Kingdom, by the way. It's just so huge that there is considerable distance.
Wait, no. Isn't there a Koopa Kingdom as well? I think that's mentioned somewhere. I don't think he's in the Mushroom Kingdom. It might be the same island, of course, but I think he has his own kingdom.
Between his domain, the Darkland, and Peach's castle. Speaking of, the only game that refers to this area as the Darkland is Mario 3, and that game is confirmed to be a stage play. There's a lot of evidence for this, such as the way the game looks, and Miyamoto confirming it himself. So with that said, we don't know for sure that all of these places actually exist, But the Mario movie also refers to the Darkland as a real place that Bowser rules over.
Your brother has landed in the Darklands. They're under Bowser's control.
I think we can assume that the one in Mario 3 is at least based on a real location. I suspect this is also near where most of the Luigi's Mansions titles take place, as the way it's depicted is pretty similar.
Oh, actually, he has a point there. Yeah.
With dead dark trees everywhere. And it makes sense to me that dark magic being performed by the Koopa race would slowly seep out into the nearby lands. The Mario Strikers charge pitch Thunder Island also likely exists near here. Most of that game takes place in the Mushroom Kingdom, so I don't think this would be too far away, and given its theming, is probably pretty close to the Darkland. As for the inhabitants of the Mushroom Kingdom, of course the majority of them are toads, ruled over by Princess Peach. I think the sheer size of the Mushroom Kingdom is probably why we see toads in other adventures throughout the planet. It makes sense that being the dominant population of the planet, you'd see more of them having moved and settled in other kingdoms as well. The other dominant species here is the Koopas, of course. The kingdom is almost constantly in a state of never-ending war between these two. There are forts and castles absolutely everywhere in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah, honestly, if you think about this colorful series of children games, it's heavier on war than like Fire Emblem or stuff. Fire Emblem has a great war going on and then that's settled, but this has been going on for like, yeah, the 30-year war can't hold a candle to this. It's crazy. Can you just be at peace? Turtles and mushrooms can live together.
And Bowser is forever trying to wrestle control of them from Peach, which he normally does, but never for too long. Peach and the Toads are undoubtedly the ones in power here, but it's definitely not a stable rule. With dark magic and the ability to resurrect the dead on their side, the next Koopa army attack is never too far away. And you know what else isn't too far away?
He made these animations himself, right? Because it looks cool, but I would have known a game like this.
The Bean Kingdom. The Bean Kingdom borders the Mushroom Kingdom on its northeastern side. It's a much smaller
It's also where Mr. Bean was born.
kingdom, only containing a handful of biomes. There's a desert canyon area to the north, and a jungle in the south with some grassland in the middle. Though much of this has been pedestrianised and turned into a castle town by the Beanish, the dominant species here. The kingdom is ruled over by Queen Bean and her son Prince Peasley. The Beanish seem to be much more traditional and valiant people than the Toads. They have a number of blockades set up throughout their small kingdom, and the Bean troops are all fully armoured and armed. Oh, there's even border control here. Getting it in requires a trip through the Stardust Fields, and a game of jump rope with the Border Bros. Better than a toll booth, I guess. There are other inhabitants here, such as the Hooligan, the Caraco, the Lagoon Dwellers, and Winkles. The kingdom was once inhabited by the ancient Soybean civilization, who had the ability to fly, dig underground, and run really fast. One Beanish, known as Bubbles, spent 1,000 years pleasing the Chocola Reserve, meaning that the Beanish obviously lived for quite a long time. It's possible this long lifespan is the reason that they are so reserved and traditional in their ways. But the Bean Kingdom isn't the only place with a lot of ancient history. Oh boy, Sarasaland. Most Mario fans with a little more than casual knowledge of the series have probably heard of Sarasaland. This is
I do. I had this game as a kid. I liked it. Like, people always say it's kind of bad, but no, it's fun. Yeah, it's very short and nothing like crazy going on, but it's the first Game Boy Mario. One of the first Game Boy games made by Nintendo, basically, so cut it some slack. It's fun for what it is.
This is the main saying of Super Mario Land and consists of 4 major kingdoms. There's the Buributu Kingdom, which is a vast desert similar to ancient Egypt with hidden ruins and tombs everywhere. The Chai Kingdom is said to be inspired by ancient China, and so it's safe to assume that this is a fairly mountainous region. The Eastern Kingdom is inspired by Easter Island, and the Muda Kingdom is almost entirely underwater, being little more than a swampland. Sarasaland is ruled by Princess Daisy, making her more of an empress than a princess, but I guess she's just very humble. Whilst these 4 kingdoms are the only confirmed locations of Sarasaland,
yeah, technically Peach should also be a queen, because sometimes a king is mentioned, but where do we have seen a king except Mario Bros. 3, which was a stage play, right? Not counting the Super Show or what that stuff is called.
I have a few other islands that I at least think border it. If not, they're probably part of Sarasaland themselves. See, Mario Land as a series is not just the birthplace of Sarasaland, but also Wario. Wario, as most people know, is
Wario was born in Sarasaland? I didn't know that.
basically an inversion of Mario as a character, made obvious by his recolored outfit, the upside down M or W on his hat, and his warped character traits. Like Mario is a popular hero who strives to be the best person he can. Wario is after more fame than popularity and strives to be the best for himself, rich and well taken care of. Waluigi would soon join Wario as an inversion of Luigi, again using those same conditions. Whilst Luigi is an anxious and nervous character, Waluigi is sneaky and underhanded. He's all of Luigi's cowardice amplified. Anyway, there was originally a concept for like a kind of Wa-Peach, and this got scrapped, I think because we already have a Wa-Peach. Because what do you get when you flip a P upside down? That's right, a lowercase d. Daisy also has...
I see what he means, but I think Daisy is more the Luigi to Peach than a Wario. Then again, yeah, pink and red are adjacent colors, but she is yellow like Wario. Huh. I don't agree, but he has a point there.
the recolored outfit convention and the warped personality. Daisy certainly isn't a crook or a cheat like Wario and Waluigi, so she's not a negative version of Peach really, but she definitely possesses traits that would have been seen as unladylike, which is basically just Boomer for saying she's kind of a badass. She is frequently shown to be a very rough and tough character who displays a ton of attitude. Mario Strikers Charged highlights the extremes of her and Peach's differing personalities best in my opinion. Peach definitely acts less composed than usual in this game, but her posing is still very effeminate. She waves and blows kisses like royalty would when she wins, whilst losing results in a bit of a spoiled temper tantrum. Daisy doesn't get sad when she loses, she gets angry. So much so that her team cowers in fear of it. And when she wins, she doesn't really pose at all, unless it's to emphasize to everyone just how hot she's feeling right now. In Mario Party 3, she even flirts with the Millennium Star in an attempt to get what she wants before knocking the life out of Bowser. Maybe there's a reason he doesn't ever try to take over Sarasaland. All this is to say that I believe this tells us that Sarasaland is kind of like a bizarro version of the Mushroom Kingdom, and that Daisy and Wario are in some way linked, given that both of them come...
I kind of believe that Daisy actually was supposed to be Peach, or Toadstool back then, and then spiraled into her own character because, I don't know, back in the day, things weren't as set in stone. Peach was Toadstool at that point and everything, so, you know, maybe... just maybe they were supposed to be the same character, but then Nintendo just was like, now they have different names already, so yeah, let's keep her as a separate character.
From the Mario Land series, I think Wario likely resides in Sarasaland. It would also explain why the enemies fought in the Wario Land series are so different from anything else in the Mario series, and why Wario himself only really shows up for sporting events where prizes are up for grabs. I also think this makes so much more sense thematically because it means Kitchen Island, for example, would be right at home here.
And so there seems to be a storm going on outside. I hope the mic doesn't pick that up, but yeah, I can't really do much about that right now. So let's move on.
Kitchen Island is the setting of Wario Land, where Wario attempts to steal a giant statue of Peach from a band of pirates led by Captain Syrup, so that he himself can hold the statue ransom. In a land where their Mario equivalent is a greedy Tomb Raider, of course pirates and bandits are commonplace. But after plundering for treasure repeatedly, results in karma coming back to bite him in the arse, Wario eventually turns to game development with the WarioWare series. Given the distinct cast of character in these games, I think this is likely Sarasaland still, with Diamond City being built up from Wario himself using his legitimately acquired wealth. Diamond City...
Yeah, we haven't visited Sarasaland, like, at all ever again after Mario Land. I think it would have been a good idea to do some Super Mario Odyssey DLCs, and Sarasaland could be one of them. But I also would have loved to see, like, you can go to Hyrule Land or Metroid Land. Yeah, I mean Metroid Land because, like, there's not one set planet. But, you know, DLC as nods to other Nintendo franchises. That would have been great. You could have done so many cool things with that. We didn't get any DLC. Odyssey was still a great game, and yeah. Maybe one day we will see Sarasaland. Maybe an Odyssey 2 on the Switch too.
It visibly looks to be on an island, and in WarioWare DIY, we see Diamond Island, which seems to house similar WarioWare production facilities. So, despite the smaller scale, I think Diamond City is likely on Diamond Island, with a Lucker Island, a location from WarioWare Get It Together, a little further down, closer to the Eastern Kingdom, which makes perfect sense thematically, and curiously acts as the intro to Orblon's stage. Perhaps another hint that WarioWare does take place in Sarasaland, given that aliens were the antagonistic force of Mario Land. I also put Cares Away Island a little further out. I don't think Wario and his team would travel a super long way for a vacation, and it does have a similar aesthetic to the rest of Sarasaland, so this just kind of makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense is that Mario owns a fucking island. The plot of Super Mario Land 2 sees Wario hijacking Mario's private island, Mario Land. He does this whilst Mario is in Sarasaland saving Daisy in the first game. Again, I think this also just adds to the fact that it makes sense for Wario to be from Sarasaland. He'd know that Mario was in town and take that opportunity to strike. We also have to assume...
Interesting take on that, but I buy it.
that Mario Land is pretty close to Sarasaland if Wario had time to hijack it and redecorate whilst Mario was off on his adventure there. But it's also got to be pretty close to the Mushroom Kingdom since it's presumably Peach who awards Mario this island for his heroics, and it'd be a real dick move to give him an island that's half a world away. I think my placement here makes the most sense. Sarasaland is likely to the east given its biomes and settings, and the fact there's a whole kingdom called the Eastern Kingdom. So having Mario Land be a central point between that and the Mushroom Kingdom, which would therefore be more western, makes sense to me. This would also explain why Daisy only visits the Mushroom Kingdom for events like Wario does, and never tags along for main adventures. It's just kinda too far for her to travel, although she did tag along for one of them. The Flower Kingdom is the main setting of Super Mario Wonder, the latest game in the series.
My German fans will get this.
The Flower Kingdom borders the Mushroom Kingdom pretty closely. We can see mushrooms from a World 1 type area in the background of Wonder's first stage. The Flower Kingdom is ruled by Prince Florian and is inhabited by the Poplins, toad-like creatures that, again, just reinforce how closely linked these two kingdoms must be. As I alluded to, Daisy actually tags along this time, and I think, again, this reinforces the idea that
I mean, if the toads are just wearing hats, then these people could also just be wearing flowery hats. They could be related, definitely.
Sarasaland is to the east, because based on the Mushroom Kingdom's position in this first stage in relation to the Flower Kingdom's map, the Flower Kingdom would be to the southeast of the Mushroom border, and therefore mean that this is perhaps less of a trip for Daisy to make. Other than being home to the powerful Wonder Flowers, we don't know much about the Flower Kingdom. Mario Wonder is, like I said, the latest entry in the series, so maybe we'll learn more about this later. Now, if only there was a less dangerous holiday destination we could visit. Isle Delfino is of course the main setting of Super Mario Sunshine. We know from a promotional Odyssey map and the flight trajectory of Peach's in-flight guide that Isle Delfino and its surrounding islands are located to the west of the Mushroom Kingdom, and roughly along the equator. This also influenced the positioning of the Darkland in the Mushroom Kingdom, since Bowser presumably had to be able to not only get here before Mario did, but also without them noticing, and that's easier for him to do if he doesn't have to fly past Peach's castle. Delfino Isle is home to the Piantas and the Noki. The Noki primarily reside in Noki Bay beneath the main island, whilst the Piantas are absolutely everywhere. The fact that they also appear in several other locations across the planet whilst the Noki don't, might indicate that the Piantas somewhat colonised the island honestly, which is kind of wild to think about. They're generally quite
I mean, they also have a mafia going on, so... Am I right?
judgmental people and are quick to paint Mario as guilty, throwing him in jail when the game begins, whilst the Noki are timid and more trusting in nature, being much nicer to Mario and seem to be kind of aware that he's not the imposter that's running around. The Piantas also clearly have established trade routes and entertainment facilities on the island, meaning that they might have basically commandeered the place and turned it into a tourist attraction. Something to think about. Interestingly, this is the first mainline Mario game to feature a playable Yoshi mount since his first appearance in Mario World, and that's exactly where we're going next. Ooh boy, okay, this one's kinda complicated. In Super Mario World, we see Yoshi's Island as this very small landmass that is part of a bigger stretch of islands referred to as Dinosaur Land. This is kind of weird because in the Yoshi's Island series, which takes place when Mario was a baby, the island seems much bigger. It's close to the sea level and it contains a lot of different biomes. Now this is pretty speculative, but my theory is that due to natural erosion, several attacks from Bowser over the years, and I assume a lot of heavy earth-shattering movement from the sort of creatures you expect to find from somewhere called Dinosaur Land, that Yoshi's Island from the past slowly broke apart, and only that original piece of land retained the title, whilst the other parts that broke off got new names, collectively becoming Dinosaur Land. Like I said, I don't have much evidence to support this admittedly, other than the
It's an explanation. Yeah, definitely.
shapes kind of matching here. I think this is just a pretty reasonable explanation for the size differences in my opinion. Egg Island from Yoshi's New Island is a totally new one that floats above the ocean. Again, this could have fallen and become part of what we now call Dinosaur Land, but either way, it's up in the sky, so it doesn't belong on this map.
Yeah, if you're talking about a floating island, like, that could, if you don't literally see what's around under it, it could be everywhere, right? Floating islands might actually even move, so who knows?
There's also Jewelry Land, the setting of Yoshi Safari. I assume this is either in Dinosaur Land or at least very close to it. The geography there is pretty similar, and guess what? Yoshis live here, so it must be pretty close. And let's dive into that for a second, because the placement of Dinosaur Land on this map was pretty strategic actually. Yoshi, as most Mario fans will know, isn't a character and rather a species of dinosaur that originates from Yoshi's Island. They're found all over Dinosaur Land of course, but they can also be found in a few other places. Jewelry Land of course, so we know Dinosaur Land must exist near that. The Mushroom Kingdom sees a fair few examples of Yoshis living throughout the land, so Dinosaur Land must be in relative close proximity to its shorelines. Perhaps the most interesting is the Bean Bean Kingdom, which sees a pretty high number of Yoshis despite its small size. And it also has Rexes living here, another Dinosaur Land native species that only ever shows up in 3 locations across the franchise. Those being Dinosaur Land, the Bean Bean Kingdom, and Vibe Island. Lastly, Delfino Isles sees a small number of Yoshis inhabiting that island. Now because of the Bean Bean Kingdom's relatively dense population of Yoshis, I would assume the Yoshis probably moved there first before making their way to the Mushroom Kingdom. We actually haven't seen many Yoshis here outside of spin-offs, so I don't get the impression that many of them migrated beyond the Bean Bean Kingdom. Those that did probably favoured tropical climates and headed straight for Old Delfino instead. This would make sense given that their relative positions to the Mushroom Kingdom mean that Yoshis would never have to move through much of the Mushroom Kingdom itself in order to get there. We do also have 4 playable Yoshis in the Flower Kingdom, but considering they are literally the
And I hate what they did with the Yoshis there. I wanted to play as a Yoshi, but I didn't want to play Wonder in that easy mode. So, well, Yoshi's my favorite Mario character. Luigi's my second favorite, so I picked him, but... was such a bummer.
only four here, I assume Yoshis don't inhabit the kingdom and instead were brought along by Mario and his crew whilst travelling. So this spot provides easy access to Jewelry Land, the Bean Bean Kingdom, Isle Delfino, and the Mushroom Kingdom, whilst also being far away enough from Sarasaland and other locations that we'll get to later don't have Yoshis walking about eating fruit and stuff. And jumping back a bit, I mentioned Rex's inhabit Vibe Island from Super Princess Peach. This is a remote island that I feel confident saying borders Dinosaur Land closely. Not only because it's one of 3 locations in the series to house Rexes, but it's also the only place that ravens exist outside of the original Yoshi's Island.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it's no reason that they just reuse designs, like, who would do that, right? I'm joking, of course. I think the one making this video was aware that what he is doing here is, like he said, non-canon and probably not true. So, and these are just games with not much thought put to them in the end. But it's a fun project.
And of course Egg Island. So it stands to reason that it must be pretty close by. I don't really have a clean segue for the next section, but let's talk about the Odyssey shit. This is simultaneously one of the most spelled out and most frustrating sections to map, because Odyssey does have a map and planet-wide view of the globe which pinpoints exactly where each of the game's kingdoms are. It just kind of completely hides everything else. We can definitely...
I would argue that Mario somehow got to a different planet, but there is a Mushroom Kingdom on this planet, so that does not work.
assume that Odyssey's globe is not a full and accurate map of Mario's planet. The Mushroom Kingdom cannot possibly be this small given how many games take place in it, with so many different biomes that just aren't shown here. But we can actually pretty feasibly work around these kingdoms and put them into our map here. We know all of Odyssey's kingdoms are located to the east of the Mushroom Kingdom since the Cap Kingdom is next to it, and we progress round the globe to the right in the game. Again, all of these kingdoms...
Wait, yeah. We go to the right around the globe, but we don't know where north is, do we? So I wouldn't assume the cardinal direction here from that. That doesn't really work, but okay.
Kingdoms are explicitly laid out here, so there's not much to speculate. It's pretty simple stuff. We do have this large unmapped area down here that some people speculate is actually Sarasaland, but...
Wait a minute. That's a piece of island we haven't used. But look at this. Look. I'm not seeing this. I'm not quite sure what to make out of this. This kind of looks ghostly. But this is a bottle. And there is something coming out of this bottle here. This is some kind of picture. But what is it depicting? Maybe there was something planned here that never was done. We might never know.
But there's not enough desert here in my opinion, and that would also move Mario Land further away from the Mushroom Kingdom, as well as make Daisy's trip to the Flower Kingdom less viable, so I don't really agree with that. The most noteworthy thing about Odyssey is the Metro Kingdom, by far the most civilized and technologically advanced part of the planet, with more modern fashion and giant bustling cities. But what we're really interested
Oh, here's an idea. What if the following happened and we haven't seen in a game yet? What if our world, where Mario presumably comes from, and the world the Mushroom Kingdom is in, they at one point became one, like maybe some big destruction event, so we lost a lot of landmass on both worlds, and then they combined, and that would explain this city with actual humans in it. I might be onto something here, but I don't think he thought of that.
in here is New Donk City, because what did man evolve from?
Monkey.
The Metro Kingdom is pretty cemented as the location where Mario first fought Donkey Kong in my opinion. There's the festival celebrating Mario's victory, Pauline being the mayor there, the trademark red scaffolding everywhere, and just the fact it's called New Donk City. This is also likely where Mario and Luigi came from, or at least lived for a while during their adult years, considering most of their early adventures and jobs take place in urban environments resembling a busy city. My assumption is that it's while clearing out Koopas from the sewers in Mario Bros that they fall for a pipe that ends up taking them either to the Mushroom Kingdom for the first time, or taking them back there if they were born there originally, which Yoshi's Island kinda suggests they might. Once again, the movie kind of backs up this idea, only using Brooklyn instead of New Donk City, and we know from concept art that New Donk originally had Mario proportioned civilians, so I think this makes sense. Anyway, for this to be a city that Mario fought Donkey Kong in, Donkey Kong had to be able to get there with relative ease, and that means that the DK Isles can't be that far off. Which this actually adds up surprisingly well, because the Metro Kingdom is shown to be a very northern region, and wouldn't you know it, one of the islands just south of DK Island is called the Northern Cremasphere. There's really only one place on the map that can be, right? And this is the saying of Donkey Kong Country 3. It's home to a lot of very jolly bears, who bear a striking resemblance to another rarely sighted platform mascot. Many of you will know that Rare worked on not only the Donkey Kong Country games for the SNES, but also Donkey Kong 64 and Diddy Kong Racing. Diddy Kong Racing takes place on Timbers Island and features two of Rare's other characters, Banjo and Conker. The important thing here is that neither of them had.
I still would want to see games for every character from Diddy Kong Racing. I think that was actually a plan at one point, and I would have loved a Timber game. I really like Timber. But apparently we only got Conker and Banjo, and with Rare now being Microsofted. Bad times.
Had their own games when Diddy Kong Racing released, meaning that regardless of messy legal issues forbidding them from interacting nowadays, Banjo, Kazooie and Conker all live within close proximity to
Conker in Smash Bros. Oh, that might be a wild ride.
Timbers Island and by extension, Donkey Kong Island. I know the fact they're Rare characters complicates this slightly, but given the amount of references to each other in their respective games, the fact Rare was basically a first-party developer anyway, and the fact that they were all Donkey Kong characters first, is enough for me to include their respective homes on this map. I mean, look at the way Donkey Kong, Diddy, and K. Rool cheer in the Smash trailer. They definitely know these dudes. Donkey Kong Country 2 takes place on Crocodile Isle, a man-made Kremlin hideout that neighbours Donkey Kong Island. This can also be seen in Donkey Kong 64, which confirms the existence of the Banana Fairy Island nearby as well. Tropical Freeze sees Donkey Kong and the gang blown very far away from Donkey Kong Island, and they get back there by traversing a group of nearby islands, in this order, so we know that they must be arranged like this in order for the gang's route home to make sense. I don't think they would have been going all about and taking the scenic route, time was kind of a big factor. Finally, DK Isles includes a group of islands seen in the Donkey Kong Jungle Climber video game. Since we don't see or hear any of these islands in Tropical Freeze nor vice versa, I have to assume that these exist in the opposite direction. And lastly, I have these two islands that don't really fit cleanly into any of the other sections, but there's Pillow Island. It's the main setting of Mario and Luigi Dream Team. It is home to an ancient race of pillow-like people known as the Pillows. Mario, Luigi and Peach are all invited there on vacation and don't seem to have been there before, so I assume it must be very far removed from the Mushroom Kingdom, hence where I've placed it on the map. Finally, we have the Kingdom of Basque, introduced in Mario Tennis Aces of all things. This area was once ruled by a King Basque until Lucien attacked. Lucien is an evil spirit possessing a tennis racket or something, because of course he is, and the story is also suspiciously Infinity Stone coded if you ask me. Again, due to the obscurity and the cast's lack of knowledge on this area, I would assume that this place is also fairly far removed from everything else. And there we go, that's it. The entire Mario planet mapped out.
Okay. It seems kinda small, like, we have so many Mario games and this is it? I guess a lot of them just take place in the Mushroom Kingdom, right? So, yeah. It's weird, but oh well. I like this map. Actually, it mostly makes sense to me. Of course, it could be completely different. But I don't think there's like an official map anyway, so There we go.
For all to see. But I hear your cries, your pleas. Where's Subcon, you ask? What about the Sprixie Kingdom and Lake Latcat? How about the hundreds of Paper Mario locations?
Paper Mario is confirmably in a different world. Seen in Paper Jam Bros, or what that game was called?
And the painting worlds from 64. Well,
the painting worlds are just inside the paintings. They are like different spheres of being.
let's start with the most isolated of the bunch. Paper Mario is not the real Mario. I don't care what Miyamoto says about all the Marios being the same.
So there are multiple links, but is it always the same Mario?
一緒です。ミッキーと一緒。
We're going back to this rule.
Okay, yeah. All the Marios are the same Mario. But Paper Mario isn't a Mario. I think he did not think about Paper Mario at all when being asked this question. That's the Mario we know from the sprite-based or 3D games, not the... Well, Paper Mario technically that's 3D, but it's flat 3D. You know what I mean.
Paper Jam is an entry in the Mario and Luigi series where Paper Mario meets regular Mario. It directly contradicts this, and Paper Mario itself backs this up too, in my opinion. See, there's this dude called Herringway. Get it? Like Hemingway. Anyway, Herringway is an author who's writing a series of novels called Paper Mario. And given that these games open with books being read a lot of the time, I think this implies that the Paper Mario games are stories written about Mario. Herringway's character being a kind of self-insert in this case. The series is literally referred to as Mario's story in Japan, and we see the characters emerge from a book in Paper Jam. And if that wasn't enough, Mario folds himself like only someone who is made of literal paper could, and fights actual real-world office equipment in some of these titles. There is zero chance that any of this happened to the real Mario. Subcon, or the setting of Super Mario Bros. 2, is a dream. Most people know that, but...
Oh, right, it is a dream. And on top of that, if you say you view this from the angle of an official map, this was Doki Doki Panic in Japan, and it would have made this official map if they made it. So this is not truly a Mario game, or at least it wasn't. It kinda is now, but you know what I mean, right? Like, you cannot really count this one, especially because of the dream part.
Sorry if you didn't. It's a pretty old game, I feel like the spoiler warning wasn't necessary. I don't think Subcon exists as a physical place, and considering neither War nor Subcon as a place have shown up since, I don't think it's any sort of dream realm
What?
or Subcon as a...
Link's Awakening doesn't count, that's not Ward. Mamu. I would want to see the Japanese name, but yeah. He is probably based on Ward, but not the actual Ward.
place have shown up since. I don't think it's any sort of dream realm either. It's literally just a regular ass dream. The Luigi, Peach and Toad here aren't real either, just Mario dreaming about them. The opening text makes it pretty clear that this is Mario's dream and his dream alone. It does also say he wakes up from that dream and finds it in a cave, but the end reveals that this is not the case. Mario likely sees real-world enemies like Shy Guys because the damn thing's terrorized him as a baby. Dreaming about childhood trauma is not that far of a stretch, honestly.
So, Super Mario Bros. 2 is Mario's therapy. What?
Mario 64 sees Mario jumping into paintings that are hung inside Peach's castle and take him to different locations. These are total fabrications. Several sources, including the official player guide, the game's website and the manual, use wording that heavily suggests that Bowser is turning the painting world's inhabitants into his army, and says that they will eventually spill into the real world. The worlds do not exist on this planet physically. They have no physical form beyond the castle itself. There is some speculation that these were painted using the same ink as the magic paintbrush in Sunshine, which it could be. However, that ink tends to teleport Mario to real locations around Delfino Isle, as well as create living beings and enemies, so I think it's pretty different. They also look pretty different in my opinion. Finally, there's the Sprixie Kingdom. This place definitely exists, but not in any earthly sense as far as I'm concerned. The clear pipe and pink void used to reach it, the fact...
Oh yeah! Yeah, like, it could be like a hollow earth thing. Oh boy, we're getting into weird theories here, but I always really liked that Peach is the first to go so that the other three could look under her skirt.
It's inhabited by magic fairy creatures, and the abstract map design leads me to the conclusion that this world is in some sort of separate fairy realm. There's also the fact that the clear pipes used to reach it don't exist anywhere else that we've seen, and the Spruces themselves seem to have to construct these pipes in order to allow others access to their world. I think Lake Lapcat probably falls somewhere in this realm too, and Bowser Jr. is able to teleport Mario there from the Mushroom Kingdom using that magic ink once again. And that's it, all of them, every location accounted for.
That is in space. That's just in space.
Oh, come on. Okay, this is going to be a pretty quick section because no, I'm not mapping out the entire universe. I just wanted to acknowledge that yes, the Comet Observatory exists, and Rosalina is up there somewhere, but considering it's a spaceship as well, it could literally be anywhere. The same goes for places like Rainbow Road and the various star worlds we see throughout the platforming games. They're usually accessed through warps and portals, so their locations are impossible for us to pin down. The one thing, however, we can get a good idea of is this planet's moon. We explore the moon pretty thoroughly in Odyssey, and it's not super interesting honestly. It's a pretty barren moon with craters on, as you'd expect. It's home to a chapel that I assume Bowser built, but again, that's kind of hard to say. The core is pretty wild though. The moon is full of these cube-like ore veins that the art of Super Mario Odyssey reveals to be the raw source of the game's power moons. When Mario and Bowser seemingly destroy or maybe activate the moon's core, various moon rocks throughout the Odyssey kingdoms seem to activate, allowing Mario to collect more power moons. The moon is also home to a race of rabbit creatures. The main group in Odyssey call themselves the Broodals, but that's not their species name as far as I can tell. Specifically, Rabbit Ridge on the dark side of the moon is where they're from. Rabbits have had a mysterious connection with space in this series for a long time. The Star Bunnies debuted officially in Super Mario Galaxy, and some instances of them seem to imply that Star Bunnies are actually Lumas in disguise. Whether this is all of them or just some of them is kinda difficult to say. But even before then, we see bunnies being mysterious entities in Super Mario 64 DS. There's these glowing white ones that will give you a key that opens a mysterious door.
Not only in DS actually, there is that yellow bunny you have to catch that gives you a star. I think it steals your cap or something. I'm not sure anymore. It's been a while since I played 64. But there was that yellow bunny in the like cellar part where you go into the desert land and stuff.
And even in the original 64, Mips has always
Just said it.
had a kind of out of place vibe to him. What's he doing down in the basement? Why does he only show up a couple of times? And why does he have 2 power stars on him? And if you want to go way back, Super Mario Land 2 introduces Bunny Mario, which is a form Mario gets when he grabs a carrot power-up. And again, this is another game where the moon appears as an explorable location. Interestingly, Bunny Mario is never seen again after this. So yeah, rabbits definitely come from various moons, or just this one.
Imagine a Mario game where all power-ups exist. Like, you can become everything Mario has ever been. I wonder if you could balance that, but I guess, yeah, but that would be crazy.
Moon in the Mario universe.
And even with that said, no 2 power-ups really are the same. Yeah, you have like the bunny and the raccoon and the cape from Super Mario World, which are all flying based, but they're all very different in how they achieve the flying, gliding stuff.
This is likely inspired by the mythical moon rabbit, a mythical figure in East Asian and indigenous American folklore, based on interpretations that identify the dark markings on the near side of the moon as looking like a rabbit. And with that, we've covered just about every single location in the world. Mario's world, that is. R1 is considerably easier to map out, someone already did that. I'm 1000% sure I missed something or got something wrong, so be sure to let me know what your interpretations are in the comments. Remember, this is all my opinion, this series is a mess, none of this is canon. And if you enjoyed this video, drop us a like, maybe a sub, if you're feeling generous. And remember,
But yeah, do exactly that. What
brothership is probably going to ruin us in a few months anyway, so none of this matters. Good night, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie and Luke. Yeah, like I said, subscribe to them, like their video, like my video. The link to the video is down in the description. And we do an algorithm comment, so put... What we're gonna put down there? Let's do... But what about Luigi's World? I know it doesn't make sense, but I don't care. So, see you next time. Bye,